Okay, standard form. The vertex is HK, and then the slope is the A multiplier, the multiplier number. The value of A can tell us what again? This is all the same. A can tell us if it's positive, it looks like that. And if the negative multiplier is in the front, then it looks like that. So A can tell us if it's up or flipped. A can also tell us if it's a little bit more narrow, or A can tell us if it is wide. So again, if A is more than 1, it goes skinnier. If A is less than 1, it widens. So what can the vertex tell us? The vertex can tell us where the minimum is, or the vertex could tell us where the, what would be a word here, do you think? Maximum. So that's where the vertex could tell us, the min or the max. And the vertex kind of tells us where to start. That's what the vertex tells us, really. Okay, ready? Formula sheet that you have on your page, little tiny slip. Number 1. Do you agree that it matches this? Okay. The vertex is opposite, opposite. So what kind of x number should the vertex be? -3, because this will move left 3. Opposite, and the y number will be +2. Okay, in this form, it tells me to take the opposite numbers. Okay, if you're confused with y, don't forget yesterday, this number would have been at the end. What would it do if I flipped it back to this end? It would say +2. If I flipped it to that side, it would say +2, which shifts it up 2. So it's just me as a matter of moving it algebraically. And what is the slope? What is the multiplier in front of the bracket? What is the multiplier in front of the bracket? Well, it doesn't look like there's anything there, but if there's nothing different that's present, what is the multiplier? 1. 1 times that. I'm not going to write 1 times something, right? Okay, so we're ready to graph. -3, 2. So give me the name of that point. Give me that drawing there. Okay, we learned this yesterday. How do we move on a quadratic function? So if I was to move x1, how would y change? 1 squared. If I was to move an x of 2, y would have to change by 4. Because what's the relationship in quadratics? Squared relationship. If I have to move x3, then y would change by a 9. So I want you to do that. Go to your vertex, go over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1, because those have pairs. Everything has partners except the vertex, right? Okay, when you're doing this, you always reset. Reset. Back to your vertex. From your vertex, head over 2, up 4. And then the other way, because it has to have a partner. Everything has a partner except the vertex. Reset. You got to go back to the vertex every time. Now if I go over 3, I need to head up 9. I'm a little bit off my page here. Just a little bit off the chart. Does it make a U shape? Does it make that nice parabola shape? Not V, it's a U. And what should I do on my parabola here? I need arrows. Because this will just keep doing this, right? It doesn't end. It keeps going and going and going and going. Okay, what is the domain? So what is the left to right movement of this graph? How far left would this be going? Negative infinity. To how far right? Positive infinity. Okay? You have to write it like that. I get people who flip-flop these and then they get it wrong. It's like reading a book. Left to right. That's how you read on the page. Range. So the y's. Can you think how low would this go to how high does this go? That's what you're thinking. So what's the lowest height? 2. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a square bracket on there because that's something that's exactly 2. Comma. How high? Infinity. Yeah.
What's the difference between a soft bracket and a hard bracket?
A soft bracket is used when something is not exactly, and a hard is when it's an exact something. So infinite always has soft because infinite is not an exact thing. Okay, axis of symmetry, if I could cut it and fold it, that's what you're doing. So where would you want to cut it? It would look like this if I wanted to cut it, right? Here's where I'm cutting. So I need to make an equation of that line. Okay, grade 10. What do you know about a line that goes straight up and down? I'm going to give you 2 choices. Should I write x equals or y equals? What value is always the same? Anywhere on that line, what is never changing? X equals, and what number for the x are you going to stay at? -3. That's how you can cut it if you went through x equals -3. Okay, so then I'm going to do a y-intercept. Does anybody know what the definition of a y-intercept would be? Where it does what? Where it's going to cross this y-axis, right? Specifically on the y-axis, would it make sense if I defined it as x would be 0 here? Would that make sense to you? On this axis, x is 0. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to make x 0. So here's my equation. Y subtract 2 equals bracket 0 plus 3 squared. See what I did? I made x 0. Okay, this is math now. You're going to just do math. Let's go here. Bracket, red math. So bracket, what's 0 plus 3? 3 squared. 9. then I need 2. Would you agree? I'm going to add 2. Does that make sense? Ooh, does the y-intercept on your graph, because you've graphed it, does it look good? Would it look like this? Y-intercept would be 0, 11? Yeah. Okay. I don't know how many times I preach this and then I get it on the exam. Make sure your y-intercept number matches what your vision is doing, right? So I've had people graph correctly and then they tell me their y-intercept is something like -7. Would that be a red flag if I told you the y-intercept was -7? Okay, number 2. Okay, so when you look at your slip of paper, would you agree that it matches this exact format? So if it matches this format, I need to take opposite numbers. Okay, so with that in mind, everything is opposite. So what, comma, what? +4, comma, -1. You see how I'm matching that into the formula positions. So this is what I'm looking at. I take the opposite of this H number and the opposite of that K number. What is the slope? So what is the multiplier number, the A? -2? What does that already tell me? Do you know something now? It should look flipped. It should be upside down, right? Okay, we're going to graph. So give me 4, -1. Okay, do you got your pattern figured out? 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. That's the squared relationship, but we're not going to do that. Okay, so here's what's happening. X and Y, there's a squared relationship, then there's a multiply factor of -2. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply after we square it, then we're multiplying by -2. Do you understand that with how the bed mass would work? You're going to be taking numbers squaring, and then you're going to be taking numbers that timesing by -2. So that's kind of what I'm doing. The pattern gets squared, then times by -2. And now I'm ready to graph. So, pen on your vertex. Ready? Can you move over 1, down 2? And you do over on both sides of it. Over to the right, over to the left. Did you make your pairs? You have partners, right? Okay, reset. Every time you're resetting, can you head back to vertex? Over 2, down 8. Right? And then you should have equal partners down there. Okay, I'm not going to do the last set, so that's it. I'm going to graph. I think on your test and on your exam, I've asked you to do 5 coordinates. So there, I'm good, right? 5 coordinates would be, I like. If there was a slope of -2, did it do the things you thought? Did it flip it? Did it get a little bit more narrow? Do you see those things? Okay, what's the domain? Left to right. What does this thing do? -infinity to +infinity, right? I'm really hoping this is your freebie point, because that's always like that. Okay, range. What is the lowest first? Think lowest first. What's going on lowest? negative infinity, comma, highest. What's the highest you would go? -1. Now, if I asked you to cut it in half, would we agree that we should cut it right through there? How do we start this? What letter? X equals, and what X value, no matter where you go on this, what number are you? 4. And the y-intercept, what should we do at a y-intercept? How do we find that? A y-intercept is where, what is happening? Where the x is 0, right? And that's vice versa, right? An x-intercept would be where y is 0, right? So y-intercept is where x is 0, so I'm going to make that happen. So there's me rewriting the whole equation, and I replaced x with 0. Okay, bed mass. Brackets. Okay, -4. Got it? What is -4 squared? -4 squared. +16, right? Now, times that by -2. So now we're at -32. Then I still have to do what, algebra? -1. Would that answer seem reasonable according to your drawing? So if I'm here, I would keep going. Would it make sense to cross way down here? -33? Doesn't make sense. Yep. Okay, let's go with one more question here. And then I'll let you try some. I had 2 more, but we'll do one. Okay, vertex. Which is the H number H and the K number? I'm looking for an H number and a K number from my formula sheet. What do you want to write in place of the H spot? Did you pick -5? Opposite of the +5 in there? Okay, what is the number to replace with K? And I'm trying to be tricky on this question, that's why I'm doing it. Where is the K number? I don't know, I'm looking at both of these. Is there a number that you're finding to be in the K spot? Either equation, doesn't matter what you're looking at. Is there a number? I got nothing. There's no number floating around. So what should I put there? 0. There's no K number. I didn't have a number over here in this spot, and I didn't have a number at the end. So there's 0. Do you see it, how I was trying to be tricky? What is the slope number? What is the multiplier in front of the x squared stuff? -1. So I already can tell you this about it. Okay, so let's graph. That's all we need. Vertex slope. So -5, 0. There it is. You ready for your quick pattern? 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. Okay, that's always the basic. The basic we start. Do we do this basic or did we make any changes to it? Changes. We had a multiply it by -1. So can you do this action? Can you go over 1, down 1? Does it make sense that it flipped? We knew there was a negative, so then it should be flipped over. Okay. You ready for your freebie point, hopefully? What's the domain? Every time. Negative infinity to positive infinity, left to right. They're always going to go left and right. But range is the one we have to think about. How far down does this go? So negative infinity is the bottom. To how high? What's the height? Did you pick 0 as a top height? Now I'm going to cut it in half. That's the axis of symmetry. So if I could cut it in half, I would cut it right through here like that. So everywhere I'm touching on that line, there is the same x value of -5. I'm going through x equals -5 here, everywhere. And the last one, y-intercept. So what I'm doing is I'm going to set x to be 0 to figure out the y-intercept. Okay, let's see your math on this. So think about bed mass. You got to do something and then something. Brackets, then evaluate exponent, then there's actually a multiply after that. So what do you have in brackets? Square it, then multiply. Did you get a -25 out of doing that? Would it make sense on your drawing that this is going to go here, down, cross? Okay, sorry, can you just flip back for a second? I think that on your homework it would say another question. So this one would have a min of 2, a minimum. Would that make sense there visually? It has a minimum of 2 versus, what would you say about this one? How would you change the words on this one? This one would have a maximum of, so what height? -1. Okay, so you might see if I'm asking for min or max, that's what I'm asking for, okay? Min and max.